Hello, Roshini Rajkumar with you for the 2 o'clock hour of News and Views. It is quite a day and a very big day for us here on News and Views. I'm really honored to introduce to you my next guest. He is definitely an iconic figure on many different playing fields in the state of Minnesota, and his current work is so widespread. It's doing some things that many of you might not even know about, how much that work of his foundation is growing our community. He is Justice Alan Page, a Pro Bowler, a Football Hall of Famer, definitely a superstar, and then he became a lawyer and a Minnesota Supreme Court Justice. Welcome, Justice Alan Page.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
It's great to have you in studio. And, you know, when you think about your career, I mean, I just have been reading headlines all of my life, watching you when I was little on the football field. And I feel like you were part of the football era when it was really fun. You know, the Bears rivalry with the Vikings and Walter Payton and the Super Bowl Shuffle, all those different things from, at least I remember from my younger days when, you know, there wasn't as much controversy, it seemed, around the NFL.
Well, the difference today is that we talk about things that we didn't talk about then. I'm not sure that much has changed, but with the instant on, constant news, we get to hear things that we didn't get to hear before.
And the social media aspect, right?
And the social media aspect.
So things that maybe were private or special moments now get broadcast to millions.
Well, they're broadcast to millions, and the people themselves are broadcasting to millions.
Yes, they are. I have to ask you before we get into a little more serious topic, the new stadium, the Viking stadium just opened. The Vikings played, fortunately, a great game against Green Bay. When you think about, you know, that was your team, you played for the Minnesota Vikings. Any thoughts as all of these kind of headlines about the stadium and the fun for fans as this new stadium opens?
Well, the stadium, I've had the opportunity to be in it 4 different times. And, you know, the game of football is an outdoor sport. But as far as having an indoor stadium, it's as close to being outdoors as you can get. It's a pretty special place.
So you would give it a thumbs up?
I would give it 2 thumbs up.
All right. Well, I really couldn't go on without asking you about that. You and your wife started the Page Foundation as you kind of hit the mandatory retirement age of 70 in 2015, had to retire from the court. Were you ready to leave at that time?
Well, the fact is that mandatory retirement is required.
Right.
And therefore, I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about whether I was ready to leave or not. It was time for me to go.
Time for your next thing. And you started the Page Foundation with your wife, Diane, Page Education Foundation, which assists students of color in their pursuit of post-secondary education. These numbers are staggering, folks. To date, the foundation has awarded more than $12 million in grants to more than 6,000 individuals. So this was in 1988. You started the foundation. So you've had, you were doing other things as this foundation was also getting started. What can you tell us about the reason why you wanted to start this?
Well, the reason is I was fortunate. I had parents who knew and understood the value of education. They understood that if I was going to have a life better than they had, I had to be educated. Growing up, I spent a lot of time, both growing up and in my later years, I've spent a lot of time in schools and classrooms. And it seems to me that education is not only a tool that helps you economically, but it's a tool that will help anyone who has been subject to discrimination because of their race. It's a tool that can be used to help people achieve their hopes and dreams. We spend a great deal of time focused on athletes and entertainers as heroes and role models. Well, the real people are the people we can reach out and touch. And so we started the foundation with the idea of creating heroes and creating hope. It's been said, I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. that suggested that people who have a stake in their society have hope for the future, want to protect society. People who don't feel like they have a stake, who lack hope, want to destroy it.
Wow.
And it was important for Diane and I to do what we could, given the good things that have happened to us, to do what we could to ensure that others had the same opportunities that we've had.
I read an interview with you from an article about a previous award. You've received so many. And one line that was really poignant to me is you said, the key to whatever success I've had can be found in an unwillingness to be satisfied with playing to the level of the competition, an unwillingness to be limited by others' expectations, a willingness to push beyond my perceived self-limitations.
Well, that's true. One of the things that football is a classic example. A lot of players tend to want to play to the level of the competition and never in that process achieve their greatest selves. And I've been fortunate to have figured out, had it impressed upon me and figured out that if you're going to achieve your highest self, you have to look beyond others' expectations because they're really limitations, and your own self-doubts, and push beyond that and try to, I don't know if we ever do, but try to achieve as much as well as you can.
What do you expect of the Page Scholars when they get into this whole program?
Our scholars receive outright financial grants 1 year at a time. They are required during the academic school year to work with young children in community service, specifically in the area of education, as tutors, mentors, and role models. Sending the strong, clear message to those younger children that education is not only important, but it is a tool that they can use. And they do that, both by word and by example. And it's really been heartening to see the work that our scholars have done. Ultimately, that work that they do with young children is what the Page Education Foundation is about. They work to not only improve their lives, but to improve the lives of those young children they work with, and in the process, improve all of our lives.
Absolutely. I'm speaking with retired Minnesota Supreme Court Justice Alan Page. He was on the Minnesota Supreme Court from 1992 to 2015. Many of us know him very, very well from his 15-year NFL career, 67 to 78 with the Minnesota Vikings, and then 1978 to 81 with the Chicago Bears. I am going to take your calls and texts for him when we come back. If you have a question or comment, text us 81807 or feel free to call 651-989-9226 or 866-989-9226.
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
Roshini Rajkumar with you. I'm here with the very honorable Alan Page, former Minnesota Supreme Court Justice, former Minnesota Viking. My only issue with him is that he was a national champion at Notre Dame. And I went to Boston College, so I am not a big fan of Notre Dame. That's my only issue, Justice Page. I'm sorry. I have to come clean.
This was long before we played Boston College.
Right. So. And let me tell you, last year you played us at Fenway and you got you guys were home at Fenway? I mean, that's wrong. That's just wrong.
I don't know who made that deal.
Dumb PR. Move on. Whoever was negotiating for Boston College's part. We are talking about the Page Foundation, which Alan Page and his wife Diane started in 1988. They have given away millions of dollars to young people who earned that money for scholarships to go out and be Page Scholars and do good things within their communities. How can people, if there are young people and families listening right now, how could they get in on the Page Scholarship?
Well, they can take a look at our website. We have an application process that I think the deadline is like May 1st of 2017. All they have to do is, if they're graduating high school, all they have to do is apply. It requires some background information, filling out an application, an essay. But we get about 1,000 applications a year, and we have roughly 500 to 550 grants each year.
That is excellent. Well, such great work. You are the keynoter coming up on October 18th. The YWCA of Minneapolis has its 14th annual It's Time to Talk Forums on Race. That is October 18th. It's almost sold out, so people can get in on it if they go to ywcampls.org. But you will be keynoting that day, and then that will be followed by table conversations. Can you give us a little preview of your message to that audience on October 18th?
Well, I haven't finalized it completely, but one of the points that I hope to make is that if we are going to solve the problems of race, then we have to learn to come together. We have to learn to live together. We have to spend time together. We have to get to know each other. Absent that, I think it's pretty tough. You know, we live still all these years after Brown versus the Board of Education. Many of our schools are still segregated. We live in segregated communities, and it's pretty hard to get to know one another when we live separately.
Well, it's interesting, even on today's cover of the Star Tribune, talking about how educated people of color come to Minnesota and they have a hard time finding a niche, and they're leaving because they couldn't really blend into the community. So even for adults who are educated and want to be here.
Absolutely. Although I came here and the racial makeup of the state was a lot different back in 1967 than it is now. The population of people of color has increased dramatically since then. And I don't know, I have to believe that, yes, it can be tough at times, but this is a pretty good place to make a good life.
Yeah, it is. It is a good place. I grew up here myself. I've lived in many different places for college and for my TV career, but it's an easy place to live, but you have to also be intentional and go out and seek people out.
Well, you have to be intentional. The reality is that I'm glad you pointed that out. The reality is if we're going to learn to live together, we have to be intentional about it. It's not going to happen accidentally.
We can be tolerant too. Let's get into, we can never predict what news and world events are going on and headlines are going on when we book you to come on the show. It just so happens the Charlotte protests have been happening for many days. We talked with a reporter from a radio station there this morning. He's outside their football stadium. You know, luckily there's been no violence, but there have been protests all day outside the Charlotte, the Carolinas football field as they play our Vikings. Okay, what is your take? How do you teach people, young people? It starts at a young age, but we've got a lot of adults out there who don't want to get along. And it's not that whites are right or blacks are right or Asians are right or wrong. It's people just aren't getting along, and that's why we keep on having these incidents.
Well, we have gotten to be extremely polarized. And we have an issue, certainly with our criminal justice system in terms of the treatment of people of color. That in a country that prides itself in having equal justice under the law, when people aren't being treated fairly, when they're not receiving due process, then there isn't equal justice. And if we as a society, as a country, are going to claim that we're a society that believes in equal justice, then we have to start providing it. And sadly, to date, you look around the country, Minnesota, Minneapolis included, we don't provide equal justice.
You have practiced as an attorney. You've been a judge, a justice. What is your advice to all of us out there when it comes to using our citizen activism in a proactive way to get that justice?
Well, I think we have to be organized. We have to, do more than simply complain. We have to vote. We have to make sure that the people who are in our executive, in our legislative, and ultimately here in Minnesota in our judicial branches are people who will work to ensure that every citizen, every member of our community, citizen or not, quite frankly, is treated fairly and receives due process and is ensured equal justice.
If you want the great wise words, the time just goes so quickly. You can see and hear Justice Alan Page keynote at YWCA Minneapolis's 14th annual It's Time to Talk Forums on Race. Go to ywcampls.org. It's almost sold out, folks, so get there quickly. Go online, get your tickets, and get in. So I've got to wind down on what looks like a lighter note, Justice Page. Laurel Cron on my Twitter feed is tweeting after Laurel saw that you were coming on. I had tweeted that out with your photo. Laurel says, crossing fingers, they talk about his tuba playing. Fill us in, because I don't know about your tuba playing. That did not turn up in my research.
Well, every year at the Twin Cities Marathon, the marathon goes by our house.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to being out on the corner of Knox and Douglas.
On October 9th?
October 9th with the sousaphone in hand.
Nice.
And looking forward to a great marathon. It's something that we've been doing for years, and it's a lot of fun.
I like it. I knew you went out there. I guess I've missed the whole sousaphone playing. That's great. Well, that would be a fun thing to tweet, folks. So get a shot of him doing that. I love it. I love it. Any final thoughts as we say goodbye to you this afternoon?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me this afternoon. We, as a people, have great potential. If we are willing to work together, to believe in each other, to get to know each other, we have hope. And as I said before, without hope, things can look pretty grim.
I love it, though. We do have potential, and we can be intentional with that potential.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, good luck to you. Good luck to all of your Page scholars. Great work. You have an open invitation to come back anytime you want.
Oh, thank you.
Just an honor to have you in. Justice Alan Page, former Minnesota Viking, 15-year NFL career, NFL MVP, 1971. Really great to have you here. We are going to